What's going on? We're back at it again with another episode of True Capacity Talks. And this segment is combos with Dr. Andy with your boy James and Dr. Andy sitting across from me. I know it doesn't really look like a doctor without a white coat on, but you can imagine what he would look like in a button-down shirt and a white coat. Today, we're going to dive into something that a lot of people get wrong. So I'm sure that everyone here has heard red meat causes cancer. Red meat is bad. Fat is bad. You shouldn't eat the egg yolks. You should stay away from dietary fat. And we're going to take just a minute to break down. And cholesterol is bad, right? That's another thing that we're going to dive into a little bit. But we're going to first start with the red meat and dietary fat in general, eggs, etc. You know, higher dietary fat foods. We're going to break down why what you've been told is a lie, and then we're going to talk about cholesterol. Kind of do a little twofer here. But the cholesterol part is going to be in just a minute, so hold out for that. Your PCP is absolutely incorrect, though. Go ahead and be thinking about what that means. So, Andy, let's go ahead and dive into dietary fat, red meat, eggs. Let's rock.
Yeah. So first, I want to preface this by saying, this pertains to normal human health, like normal healthy human, right? That has no kind of underlying pathology. So and when I say that, I don't mean, okay, diabetes or obese or metabolic syndrome or any of those, right? What I'm talking about is certain conditions where they have like an allergy or they have a pre-existing genetic condition that predisposes them to not eat certain foods. Okay. So those are the rare cases. So this is just for the person who's out there listening, who just is who's heard a lot of different advice, right? Like, oh, wait, fat is good. Wait, fat is bad. Or like this fat is good. And like, wait, that fat is bad, or cholesterol this, cholesterol that. So this is for those of you guys that are listening that don't have any of those, former diagnoses, etc. So yeah, first and foremost, fat. Is it good? Is it bad? Does it make you fat? Right? Is red meat good or eggs good? What part of the egg should I eat? I was told, the yolk is good, the yolk is bad. Only eat egg whites, whatever. So first and foremost, I want to overlay this. And I know we've talked about this in other podcasts, but you and I both agree on this, James, is that quality of food trumps, well, I guess, quality of it. So the better quality of food that you eat, right, that matters. So if you get eggs, and I have eggs by my side here, coincidentally, but if you eat eggs that come from a pasture-raised chicken farm, right, so it doesn't go through a processing plant, and it's not the AA or grade A large eggs that you get in the styrofoam containers, right, that are all painted white and all the egg yolks look perfect and the same color, right, with dye, those eggs have a different effect on the body than do the chickens raised by your neighbor, right? That go out and they can eat whatever they want. They eat grubs, worms, insects, you name it. And they're not sitting indoors all day. So two different qualities. Same thing with red meat. Same thing with all your foods, right? So laying it out there, dietary fat does not make you fat. Okay. If you eat a surplus of anything, protein, carb, or fat, especially together, that without excessive output, right? Yeah, you will gain weight, right? And depending on, however much you mix those macronutrients together, right? You can have more fat tissue laid down or less, depending on your stress level, all that stuff. So, but eating fat does not necessarily make you fat. So if I go out and have like 4 pieces of bacon right now, that's not going to be layered into adipose tissue into my body, right?
And
Now,
for people that don't know what adipose tissue is, that's literally just fatty tissue. So think when someone says body fat percentage, right? What they're talking about is how much percentage of that body fat do you have on you? And it's a really kind of a it's a very crude way of saying it because it doesn't account for a lot of other things, but just for understanding's sake, when we're talking about adiposity, we're talking about just body fat on the body, not the fat that you're eating, right? Big delineation needs to be made because people confuse and conflate the two because they just don't know that they're different. I mean, a lot of people might have just found out that those are different things.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, James. So yeah, when I say adipose, I'm talking about fat on the body in relation to your muscle mass. So yeah, red meat, right, does not make you fat. Red meat does not cause any heart disease, right? Or on its own does not cause cancer. Now there's various ways that you cook it, that you can prep it, etc. That can be more predisposing to cancers and maybe some diseases, but that's a little bit too much for this podcast. Okay. But in general, right, red meat is not bad. Okay. Now, James, I don't know if we want to go too far into this, but just I want to note this is that there's various kinds of fat. So you guys, if you read the label on foods, right, first of all, if a food has label, it probably is processed to some capacity, because an apple, a banana does not come with an ingredient list on it. It just is what it is. So if you're reading a label and you see total fat, and then you see saturated fat, if you see trans fats, if you see monounsaturated or polyunsaturated, those are all different kinds of fats. So first off, if you see trans fats at all, put it back on the shelf or wherever you got it from. Do not eat that. Okay. The difference between saturated fats and your unsaturated fats is that saturated fats have a little bit higher tolerance to being broken down. So what that means for you guys in general is that when you eat a saturated fat, okay, such as say red meat or say even coconut oil, or coconut, I should say. So those are higher in saturated fats, even though there's a little bit different. They're going to be a little bit harder to burn off in the body. Okay. So you may think two ways, right? Oh gosh, well, if I eat that fat, I'm going to get fat, and then it's going to be harder for me to burn that off. That's not necessarily the case. So breaking that down, okay, actually burns more energy. Thermogenesis, which is you breaking food down, creating heat, creating energy through breaking food down. So if you eat that food, it's going to be harder to break down. You burn off more energy, so you could coincidentally even lose weight by eating those foods. Does that make sense, James?
Yeah, I totally hear what you're saying. To kind of just give everyone that's listening, like, oh shit, what are like some different sources of saturated fats, or where saturated fats kind of found in? Like, I kind of want to just interject here. You mentioned coconut, like coconut oil, palm kernel oil. A lot of saturated fat is in pizza and cheese, right? Yeah. Reduced fat milk, butter, dairy desserts, meat products, sausage, bacon, beef, hamburgers, cookies, and other grain-based desserts, and then some fast food dishes. So just like be aware that you're probably ingesting it if you're not paying attention, right? You're probably already ingesting it, but just so that people don't think that it's like, it's only coconut oil, or like only this one thing you're going to cook in over here. It's in a lot of things that a lot of people are eating. But go ahead.
Yeah. And yes, thank you. And so, and saturated fats for the most part are a little bit more flavorful. So like the fat that's on your meat, right? That most people, I don't want to stereotype, right? But I've seen a lot more females than males do this. The females cut off the fat, right? That's the flavor. So that's in some foods. So yeah, first of all, if you're listening to this and you see palm oil or any seed oils, right? Run away. Vegetable oil is not made from vegetables. Do not use it, consume it. That's just a little PSA. But yeah, so that's some of the foods that it comes in. Unsaturated, right? Those are going to be easily broken down, right? They contain, good omegas. So, think brain health, right? Primarily when you eat something that has like unsaturated fats in it, such as like your olive oils, your avocado oils, your not nuts and seeds, but avocados, right? Those have a lot of good unsaturated fats. And James, you might be able to list some more foods that are currently escaping my mind, but those are going to be more easily broken down, right? Readily available for energy usage. But those fats don't translate into adiposity or adipose tissue, which is again fat on the body. You eat it and it doesn't go straight to fat. Okay. In fact, one of the worst things that you can do, especially if you struggle with weight and weight loss or even weight gain, meaning like you can't stop losing weight easily, is combining fat with sugar. So, for instance, like, okay, peanut butter, right? I would say that there's better options out there than peanut butter, such as like almond butter. Okay. But peanut butter, primarily fat, right? Almond butter, primarily fat. You eat that with like bread or toast or another carbohydrate, right? So doing fat and sugar together is a higher propensity for that to be stored as fat in your body than just fat alone. So if you have, better example, if you have a burger, right, and you eat that with a bun, right, with bread, carbohydrate, that's most likely going to be converted more into adipose tissue or fat than just the meat alone. Okay. Now everyone's going to be a little bit different. So if you're out there being like, oh gosh, I'm never going to eat, bread again. Okay. That doesn't mean that you eat a burger, you're going to gain all this weight. Okay. But just know that if you are struggling to lose weight, if you're one of those that's an easy gainer, that might be an easy solution. Just cut out grains or just cut out carbohydrates, starchy carbohydrates, right? With proteins. So is there anything else, James, as far as like on the fat topic, meats? Oh yeah, egg yolk. I want to go back to the eggs. Okay. So egg yolk is full of cholesterol. In fact, a lot of textbooks and a lot of books in general that talk on nutrition say that the egg is one of the closest to a perfect food. Okay. The whole egg itself. And again, I'm talking natural chickens, right? That lay eggs. Okay. Not the ones that you get styrofoamed and all painted the same and all that. So
let's take a time out there for 2 seconds, because some of you might not know where to get eggs that are raised, without being sprayed down and injected and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right. If you're eating the eggs that Angie's talking about, it doesn't mean that you're going to die tomorrow. Okay. And if you cannot find access to the eggs that he's talking about, it doesn't mean you should stop eating eggs in general. It does mean that you should be intentional about understanding the difference between, and if you are in a place where you can opt for healthier eggs, it's a better idea, right? They're more nutritionally dense, right? You're getting more out of them for the same volume of an egg. So like, I don't know the ratios here and I don't know the portions, but I want to make sure that we're not being food elitist, because some people are in a spot where like, hey man, maybe I'm on EBT, right? And I caught this on YouTube because I'm on a public computer right now. And so I want to be sure that we're intentional about making people aware that like there's varying degrees of improvement on things. And like, I'd rather you all day eat those eggs that Andy's talking about, as opposed to eating Kellogg's cereal 3 times a day. All day, I'd rather you make that shift. But if it's me, I'm going to pull eggs out of the chickens that my mom has, or at the local farmer's market to the best of my ability.
Yeah.
Before I'm going to go and grab just the 64 or the 6 dozen that are in a carton that all look exactly the same. When something looks too perfect, it usually is.
Yep.
And so continue.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. So, but as far as the egg goes, so, cause there was I think it was like 6 years ago, maybe, is when I kind of first noticed it, but there was a giant shift in like egg whites, right? Like that was like the hot topic. I remember going through chiropractic school, and a bunch of my classmates they were buying these, looked like milk cartons of egg yolks, right? And using that and mixing and all that kind of stuff.
Egg whites.
Egg whites. Yeah. Thank you.
He
egg
said
whites.
yolks.
Yeah.
Nobody's buying egg yolks like that.
And doing the Rocky drink, right?
No.
So, yeah. So egg whites. So you're missing a ton. So the egg whites primarily have what's called albumin, which is a protein, right? And you use that in your own blood. You make it yourself, right? So a good proponent. That's why it's partly eggs are really good. You eat the white because you give yourself that nutrient, that protein. The egg yolk, the yellow stuff, or the orange or whatever color it is, it has a lot of good cholesterol, and that's where I kind of want to like shift the next part of this conversation, talking about cholesterol, but good fats. And so the egg has very, if not any, very low carbohydrates. Has a really good amount of, I think it's 20 grams, 18 to 21 grams of protein in every egg, I believe.
18 to 21 grams of protein in an egg?
Maybe
more like 7. What?
Okay.
18. Holy shit.
Yeah. Okay. Gene, you can look that up and tell me what that amount is. But as far as fat to protein balance goes, it's a very nutritious whole food in itself. So, but the egg yolk, right, shouldn't have this big voodoo, stay away from it, because the egg yolk is going to, make me fat, or it's going to give me higher cholesterol, or it's going to clog my arteries, or all these things that were smeared across the public's eye, right, in the 70s and 80s during that giant study that came across that said like, hey, eating low fat is going to make you live longer. It did the exact opposite. So cholesterol, I want to kind of bounce into that realm now. So the body makes cholesterol. Every single cell inside your body, I don't know how many trillions of cells that we have, but every single cell makes cholesterol. It has vital importance in a lot of different pathways. Hormonally, cell membrane, which is basically the outer shell of the cell, which keeps everything inside of it. Your brain, which is approximately made up of 20, I think, to 25% cholesterol, right, which is a quarter, okay, of your brain. And then your GI tract, your liver uses a lot of cholesterol, right, to make hormones and even to make bile. Bile is the stuff. If you've heard of your gallbladder, right, everyone should have one, okay. But it not only houses bile, which bile is a substance that breaks foods down, okay. Cholesterol is what the largest component of that substance is. So it plays a huge role in breaking food down. If you can't break food down, you can't ingest it, and then you can't take those materials and build stuff. You can't repair cells. You can't grow, right? So there's a lot of sequela or pathways that use cholesterol and has very high importance to it. Now, just because the body makes it doesn't mean that we can't give it cholesterol in our diet, right? Cholesterol can be made from proteins, can be made from carbs, can be made from fats. Most of the time, it's made from all three of those combined. Okay. If you leave out one of those macronutrients, your life's not going to be looking very good. Okay. So, cholesterol, though, and most of us have heard of good and bad cholesterol. I want to kind of go very surface level into these. Okay. But there's not good and bad. There just are various types of cholesterol. The two main types that most people might be aware of are what's called the good cholesterol, which is HDL, high density lipoprotein, and then LDL, which is low density lipoprotein. So HDL, or the good cholesterol, can be raised through primarily activity, okay, exercise, think of that. LDL is usually inverted to HDL. So the less HDL you have, the more LDL you have. And the less LDL you have, the more HDL you have. LDL is always going to be, and it should be, slightly higher. Now, sedentary lifestyle, or like, when I say poor diet, I'm talking like high sugars, right? A lot of processed foods, fried foods, those kind of things. That'll jack up your LDL, your bad cholesterol. Now, you need both. So I'm going to break this down into an example or an analogy. And so imagine an intersection, right, in your neighborhood or in your city or in your town, right, an intersection. So there's construction being done, right? A car veered off the road, hit a telephone pole. That telephone pole crashed, right? Now there's backup of traffic, okay? And there's impedance to the free flowing of cars. Okay. So this intersection would be like a blood vessel in your body. Okay. The cars you can think of as like, your blood cells, your red blood cells that are carrying, energy and carrying nutrients and oxygen. So when this happens, when there's damage done to the blood vessel, you can think of that as the car going off the road and kind of hitting the telephone pole and causing this. Okay. In this example, I'm going to use glucose, which is sugar, right? Think of processed sugar. So when you eat something, let's say you eat a piece of candy, right? That gets broken down, you ingest that, means you absorb it. And then glucose, which is the substrate or the molecule that helps to make up that candy, right, is now floating in your blood. If that sugar floats around in your blood vessels for too long, it kind of gets a little out of control and it bangs into the walls and it damages your walls, kind of like that car hitting that telephone pole. Now what happens is the body senses this. The liver then sends out your bad cholesterol, LDL, to go out to that site where the damage has been done. That's your cop car, right? That's your ambulance. That's your fire truck. Those are your first responders. Okay. That's your bad cholesterol, your LDL. It goes out, it repairs the telephone pole. It directs traffic, gets kind of things so nothing gets any worse, right? When that gets all finished, right, the liver then sends out HDL, or your good cholesterol. Basically, think of that as like your chief back at the station sends out a call, right, to tell all the units, hey, everything's all good, come on back home, right? So there's damage, right? LDL goes out, helps with the damage, repairs the tissue, the artery. Then HDL goes out and recoups the LDL, tells all those fire trucks and first responders to then go back to the station. And then that freeway, or I'm sorry, that intersection, okay, and that blood vessel is then free to go about wherever it was before. What happens is there's this misnomer that cholesterol gets too high, or even too low, but that's rare. It's usually too high, and we try to mark it. Okay, we try to get it into this normal range. For most people, it's under 200, somewhere between like 120 to 180. Okay, is usually like what primary care physicians try to get it within. So let's say you're sitting at like 200 or 210, or let's say you're even touching like 180, right? Sometimes people say like, oh, you're on the upper echelon of high cholesterol. They'll give you some kind of medication to knock that down. The problem is, right, you're dampening a system in your body that's just trying to physiologically do its job, right? Because of something that's causing damage in the body, or the body's deficient in something and it needs to make more cholesterol because it's restricted via the diet in getting enough materials to make its own cholesterol. So if you're somebody who suffers from, say diabetes, right? You have probably too much blood sugar, right? And that example that I used, right? You have too many cars hitting telephone poles and causing traffic. So of course you're going to have a lot of first responders, right? Of course you're going to have a lot of potential plaquing or clotting or high blood pressure, right, in your blood vessels. Okay. Or if you have indigestion issues, if you're not digesting food well enough, if you're constipated, or if you have diarrhea, or if you have bloatiness, gassiness, if you have acid reflux, okay, all these things, and there's other digestive stuff issues, diagnoses out there. But if you have digestive issues, or even if you don't have a gallbladder, right, which is going to now limit you in digesting food, right, you are going to have a higher cholesterol because your body needs cholesterol in order to make bile to then break foods down. So it's not just, cholesterol is not just, oh, I'm fat, or, oh, I have, a clogged artery, or I'm predisposed to heart disease or whatnot. I see a lot of folks that end up having a lot of psychological, when I say issues, I would say just more like mood, kind of fluctuations, right? And one of the first things that I ask them is, with their diet, are they getting enough fat? Right? Kind of like we talked about further, because fat has a good amount of cholesterol in it in the dietary foods that we eat. Only about 20% of what you eat dietarily gets used by the body as cholesterol. Okay. Your body makes about 80% of the cholesterol that you need. But usually they're lacking in some sort of good, healthy fat so that their body can make cholesterol. So then all these processes, their brain, their organs, right, their tissues can function better. So it's not just this, oh, you have a high cholesterol. Doctors, MDs, and I'm not calling anybody out, right? But if someone just
Bullshit,
looks at
you're calling somebody out. Just fucking keep moving.
Okay. So if somebody just looks, and this even goes for myself, if you just look at one metric, right? Oh, your cholesterol is 230. Instead of just being like, well, we got to knock that down because the body doesn't know what it's doing. No, figure out what's causing that cholesterol to be higher. Are you not eating enough cholesterol? Are you eating too much sugar? Are you drinking too much alcohol? Whatever it is, right? Maybe it's your lifestyle. Change the lifestyle. Don't just mark that number into a healthy, what we deem as a healthy normal range, because 10, 20, 30, 40, whatever it is, years down the road, you could end up with, a different pathology, a different, issue or symptom, right? That could have been prevented by going at the cause initially instead of just covering the symptom up.
Yeah, I think this goes all the way back to understand the root cause, and understand the root cause of what is causing other things, right? Because just like you said right there, I mean, your cholesterol, so someone's A1C is up, right? And their cholesterol is up, they're pre-diabetic. And you find yourself in this scenario where you just start taking medication just to blunt the two of them without fixing that perhaps maybe you need to stop eating so much high sugar, high fat food. Maybe you also need to make sure that you give your body the capability to digest properly. Maybe you're also not drinking enough water. Maybe you're also not having enough fiber in your diet because you're just eating ultra refined, ultra processed foods. And like, unless you do that, all of these medications are going to do is just mask it until something egregious happens. Because your body can only withstand certain things for so long, right? You can only continue to roll your ankle like you're doing it until one day you just snap something.
Yeah.
You can only like punch your punch the doors of acid reflux for so long before you have no ability to close that anymore.
Yeah.
right? You can only do that for so long until it's too far gone, where now you got to have another medical intervention. So I think that the fact of the matter is that, you know, your favorite TikTok influencer and these random people that have decided to make different dietary choices, like someone that's vegan, right? Someone that's vegan saying that they want to be vegan because meat causes cancer isn't beneficial for you to actually make the right choices for yourself. If you don't want to eat meat because you don't want to eat meat, sweet, bro. If you don't want to eat as much dietary fat, especially from animal foods, as other people do, sick, dude. But let's not get it twisted that not having dietary fat will fuck up your mind.
Yeah.
And thinking cholesterol is good or bad, ones and zeros, black or white, it's you know, it's over here or it's over there. No, it's a continuum, right? And it's also a relationship between two. So I would say even more than a slider, it's like having something on both sides, right? That can slide this way and can go up and down on both sides. And there's a balance in the middle. And so I think that if you want to not be empowered, right, and you don't want to do any other research, you don't want to go down any other rabbit holes, you don't want to change too many things, if you just can understand that dietary fat does not equal adiposity, does not equal body fat. Red meat is not going to give you cancer by itself, right? Egg yolks are not to run away from. You don't need to just drink egg whites, right? Because some of that is informed by somebody that has a different goal than you, right?
Yeah.
For example, egg whites have been popularized by bodybuilders. Why? Because the caloric density is far lower than a full egg for people in prep, right? And what prep is getting on stage. How many of you motherfuckers are getting on stage? Even Andy and I, working out 6 days a week, are not trying to get on stage. So you don't need to drink. You don't need to drink egg whites. You don't. You also don't need to be afraid of cholesterol or dietary fat.
Yeah. Yeah. Please don't be afraid, I should say.
Yeah. Understand that like it's all a relationship. So I know that we've now beat this horse dead, and we've beat it even further, pushed it off a cliff, beat it again. We kind of went through a deep dive, right? Andy did of how the interconnectivity of a bunch of things. Understand that cholesterol is going to be made by your body also if you don't ingest it. So you're not going to be able to get away from it, no matter how many of you are like cholesterol's bad. Well, your body's just going to produce it. By the way, it's basically an 80-20 split. Like it's already going to make it. So you're not going to run away from it. If you don't want to eat too much of it, sweet, bro. Your body will produce it.
And the other thing too, yeah, like listen to your body, right? So if you, because I've done, both you and I have tried different nutritional plans,
Tons.
right?
Yeah.
I feel worse when I do heavy starchy carbohydrates, right? I do better with a higher fat intake. That's just me though. So I won't tell everybody on the planet that they need to do what I'm doing, right? Because I was born in a different latitude than most. Well, not most people, but then down here, I was born up in the north, right? Not down here in the south. So I was exposed more, right, to higher proteins, higher fats, less carbohydrates. So yeah, just because something works for you, just have the mindset and the awareness that just because it worked for you, you can apply your opinion, but know that it's not dogmatic. It's not dogma. It's not the only way that people need to do something. So, and again, if you find that you do worse on what we're telling you to do, then don't do it. Now, I will say this: if you try something and you are naturally detoxing from it, such as you try ketogenic, which is a higher fat, lower carb, a true ketogenic, and you detox and you feel like shit and you feel like you have the flu and your joints ache and you're sweating and you can't get out of bed, that can be, albeit uncomfortable, that's normal because you're getting rid of a lot of toxins all at once. And so most of the time, if you're going true keto, you probably need to be under the watch of like a healthcare professional. But yeah, just know that not everything good for you is always going to feel the best, at least at first.
Well, and to piggyback on that, most people that come in on coaching with myself, Daniel, or Brett, the first 4 weeks, they don't feel great. Like you feel stronger in the gym, but your body you're like, what I'm doing is making me worse. It's not. What you're doing is changing what you've been doing for years and years and years and years. And so it's not going to feel good, right? When you change up, it's not going to feel good. I'm not interested in going true ketogenic. I'm not interested in it at all. But people that do it, I think that you got to be very, very careful. Like with everything, you've got to know what's coming. And so I would say in general. Find what works for you. We're offering you some things that we've read, that we've tried, that we've done, that we've seen work for people that have worked with us. It's all anecdotal, right? We can point you to the directions where we've learned certain things that we now have as underpinnings for how we communicate with other people and what we recommend. But like at the end of the day, if something that we do works well for us and doesn't work for you, don't do it. Right. That's common sense. Like, we're not your daddy. You're the daddy. You the daddy. You got to be your own daddy. Okay. And you got to get out there and figure it out. Something I didn't say, because we went on tangent earlier, monounsaturated fats, right? When you're talking about, you mentioned avocado, right? Mm-hmm. You mentioned avocado. We got almonds, we got hazelnuts, we've got pecans, we've got pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, right? And then there's some other things that I'm not going to recommend because they fall under a different place. But they fall under a place that, like, I'm not going to put my name on them. And there's certain type of oils. So just go with that what you will. But all that to say that, like, dietary fat and fats, whether they be, unsaturated, or we're talking about saturated fats, right? Not the devil. Okay. Not going to kill you. And, unless I'm eating a 16-ounce steak, I don't cut off the fat either. But if you're eating that much meat, you're probably not going to be able to eat the fat too. So just be aware of that, right? If you're eating that much meat at one time, which is aggressive, and I do it and I love it, I cut off the fat on a 16-ounce steak. Not going to eat it because I don't have enough space for anything else. But on like a 4, 6, or 8 ounce, no, eat that shit. Eat that nice marbling. Put that in your mouth. Eat it. You deserve it. Rock and roll. Anything else you want to leave everyone with?
No, man. I think we took up a good chunk of their time, but hopefully they found this useful, man. So
yeah, and if they didn't, just listen next week. Maybe you'll find that useful.
Maybe that'll work.
Give us another hour. We'll see. Appreciate y'all, and we will see you every Wednesday. Back at it again, right here, virtually. We actually don't have an in-person relationship. We only see each other on Zoom. Anything else would be blasphemy. So I hope y'all enjoy this. Peace.